everyone. Now we are going to start our event. Warm welcome to all dignitaries, guests, and delegates, and a very good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on your location. It is wonderful to see you all here for exchanging of views and interaction on topics related to inventory modeling. I am Akanksha Srivastava, DS Kothari Postdoctoral Fellow at Department of Mathematics DST fees sponsored at Gujarat University working with Professor Neeta Essa.
Hello everyone, I am Milan B. Patel, Research Fellow having Shodh Scholarship, working in the Department of Mathematics at Gujarat University under the guidance of Professor Neeta H. Shah. I feel privileged to welcome all of you on behalf of the Department of Mathematics, Gujarat University, to this Digital International Conference on Inventory Modeling 2020. This is the first time in the history that such an online event is being organized by the Department of Mathematics, Gujarat University.
The Digital International Conference on Inventory Modeling aims to bring together leading academic researchers to exchange and share their experiences and research on various aspects of inventory modeling. It will also provide a platform for researchers, practitioners, and educators to learn the most recent innovations, trends, and concerns, as well as practical challenges encountered and solutions adopted in the field of inventory modeling. Of course, it will be a great opportunity for students, academics, and industry researchers to learn new developments in this field.
Conveying the greetings of the day, we are hoping that all of you are safe at your respective places as we all are passing through the difficult time of pandemic. However, we are fortunate at the same time for being a part of such an intellectual event that keeps our mind active and improves our productivity.
We have divided all the talks in two sessions. The first session is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. today, and the second one will be tomorrow with the same timings. Every speaker will get 35 minutes for presentation, followed by 5 minutes for questions and answers. Delegates are requested to put their questions in the chat box. All the participants will get an e-certificate after filling and submitting the feedback form. The link to submit the feedback form will be open tomorrow after the seminar. The link will be closed on Monday, 24th August at 12 noon Indian time. So let us start today's session. Our first speaker is Professor K. Scori. Professor Scori is an associate professor of operations research in the Department of Mathematics, University of Ionia, Greece. Her research interests lie in the area of supply chain management with emphasis on inventory control. Her papers have appeared in a number of high-impact journals such as Naval Research Logistics and Computers and Operations Research. She is serving in the editorial board of many internationally reputed journals. She is also the reviewer for over than 50 journals. She will be giving a talk on an ST-based stock policy with deterministic demand and supply disruptions. It is my honor to invite Professor Scori for sharing her work with us. I now invite her to proceed with her presentation. Over to you, Professor Scori. So please, ma'am, start.
Thank you for introduction and your invitation. And can you see my presentation?
No, madam. No.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, madam.
So my talk is about NST-based stock policy with deterministic demand and supply disruption. And this based in a joint work with Professor Konstantaras and Lagodimos. This is a brief outline of my presentation. Firstly, a brief introduction on supply uncertainty will be provided. Then a notation and assumption will be given. The model formulation will be provided under two continuous cost accounting schemes, and then a numerical examples, conclusion, and direction for future research will be given. Supply uncertainty directly affects the performance of inventory production network, increasing operating cost and reducing customer service. Therefore, the development of models dealing with this issue has evolved into an active research area. In general, the literature can be divided into two broad areas, supply under random yield and supply under disruption. Random yield occurs when the quantity received may differ from the quantity ordered by a random amount. So it is assumed that a fraction, say P, of the supply received is defective. This parameter P is considered to be either deterministic or a random variable, which may known but dependent on another unknown parameter or unknown. Reviews of inventory model with imperfect quality can be found in this paper. Turning now to supply disruption, those correspond to sudden interruption of the supply process. Supply disruption could be exogenous to the supply chain, not necessarily related to the supplier's efficiency. For example, natural disaster, terrorist attacks, etc. And also they could be endogenous, so reflect the inherent quality of the supply process. For example, supplier inability to deliver. Here there are some review on this topic. Our work is in the interface of these two areas. And we present the basic notation we will use. D is the demand rate. S is order up to level, is the decision variable. T is the review reorder interval, also decision variable. K is a fixed cost per delivery. H is the unit holding cost. B, the unit backorder cost. With this we denote the average inventory for a cycle with starting inventory state I, and PI is the probability of a cycle with starting inventory state I, and alpha is the well-known service level ratio, which is equal to B over H plus B. We use these operators, and with asterisk we will denote the optimal value. We present the assumption underlying the operation of the inventory system. We study a single echelon inventory installation controlled by the ST policy. This means the replenishment orders are released periodically in time interval of length T, aimed at the historic inventory level up to S. The supply process is unreliable, following a stationary Bernoulli process. So for each replenishment order, there is a probability P of delivery failure. By the control policy used, the supply quantity not delivered at the current period routinely increases the next period replenishment order. The planning horizon is assumed as infinite. Demand rate is known and has a fixed rate. Shortages are allowed and full back order. Lead time is zero, and the supply delivery failures are independent of each other. The above assumption comply with the so-called fixed or cycle delivery contract. Under such contracts, a supplier undertakes to deliver to a buyer according to an agreed fixed equidistance delivery plan. While the timing of any delivery cannot be altered, its exact size is finalized and on short notice, representing the lead time assumed here to be zero. So the system and the result could be proved value when negotiating the details of the associated delivery plan. Now we will present the model formulation, which will be provided under two cost accounting schemes, continuous and end of cycle cost. Continuous cost accounting scheme is based on inventory profile variation within the cycle, always considered in EOQ-based or continuous review inventory models, while end-of-cycle cost accounting scheme is exclusively based on the end-of-cycle inventory level, totally ignoring inventory profile variation within the cycle. We will come back later in this issue, but we note that for inaccuracies that may result by the deployment of the end-of-cycle costing, we refer to the studies of Randi and Annie van der Henning, and we will further explore this issue as part of the present work. So we make use of the non-decreasing function dt with d of t capital equal to d times t, which is as denoted as the apparent cumulative demand. The exact specification of d of t depends on both the actual demand process and the cost scheme used. So we treat d of t as being the actual cumulative demand imposed on the system over the inventory cycle of length t. Here is a shape in figure 1. We can see a shape path of the inventory level over time, assuming that cumulative demand is given with this relation. So the inventory is reviewed every t period, and the retailer observes the current inventory level. For example, here we have a review. The inventory position is here. The quantity, the order quantity is accepted. So the inventory level brings the inventory level up to S, while here the delivery failure, so the order quantity is rejected, and the inventory level in the next review instant is in this level, and etc. So the start of cycle inventory level become a random variable S minus X times D times T, depending on the size of the failed delivery, X times D times T. So it can attain several distinct states, I, each occurring with probability Pi. Since delivery failures follow an independent Bernoulli process, Then x is a geometric random variable, so pi coincides with geometric mass function. And now we present the total system cost, which comprised by ordering cost and the average holding backordering cost over all cycles. This means that this quantity gives the average non-negative inventory and this the backorder for any cycle that start with this static inventory level S minus tau minus 1 d times t. And the objective is to find the values for S and T that minimize the total cost. Now we define a new variable of this form, and using this variable, we have tau cycles with tau less than equal to m with non-negative inventory, tau greater than equal to m plus 2 with a backorder, and at cycle m plus 1, depending on the specification of d of t, we can have both non-negative inventory and backorder. Also, this relation holds. So, using this variable, our total cost is rewritten in this form, and now we need to solve this constraint optimization problem. So we have add this new variable and this constraint. So now to solve this problem, we first need to customize it for each costing scheme, so to obtain a workable model for this integral. Now, the detailed specification of d of t as applied to each scheme is necessary, since the key factor differentiating account scheme is demand information. And we start with continuous costing. In continuous costing, demand information is fully available. So the inventory profile used for cost evaluation directly reflects the imposed demand process, deterministic or stochastic, so dt coincides with actual cumulative demand. And according to this cost account scheme, dt has this form, and the long average cost under continuous costing has this form. We give some result. For any given m, the function, the cost function is jointly convex in S and T, and the optimal m is given by this relation, where alpha is again the well-known service measure. And here we can see that we can find a closed form solution for the optimal value for reorder level and order up to level. This look like the news vendor formulation, and the optimal cost also has a closed form expression. Of course, we can note that for perfect supply process, this means that the optimal m is equal to 0, then the corresponding solution of the EOQ model with backorder prevail. Also, we have the following properties. The optimal m is stepwise increasing in P, and the optimal reorder interval is decreasing in P. This ratio is increasing in P, and the optimal cost is increasing in P. These figures provide example for the data given here for the behavior of the above function of cost, reorder level, and this ratio with respect to P for different values of the service level, alpha 0.8, 90, and 95. Of course, all graphs clearly verify the theoretical results. Now we can compare the above exact analysis with that of our previous work. Actually, in this work, we have used this condition, and in general, this is an approximate formulation, easier to solve, since we have arbitrarily fixing m to be equal to 0, and so the exact three-dimensional problem became two-dimensional. Of course, it happens that when the exact model gives us optimal m equal to 0, and this is obtained for relative small p, both model and respective solution give exactly the same result. And here we plot the graph for each p. We first found the optimal value for n and t for each model separately. We then evaluated the resulting cost by using the true cost expression for continuous costing, and we observed that both models almost perform identically for small values of p, for p less than 0.25, when the optimal m is equal to 0. However, for larger p, our previous model leading to solution that can considerably increasing the total cost. And now we turn to the end of cycle cost model analysis. The end of cycle costing schemes has been traditionally used for cost evaluation in periodic review inventory system. Firstly, we mention discrete costing. In discrete costing, inventory formation is only available in discrete time period, reflecting the total demand in each period, and exact inventory evaluation is only possible at the end of each period. To obtain the inventory profile within each period, the end of period inventory is then assumed to represent inventory level during the period. So the apparent cumulative demand, D of T, is D of TAF, where D TAF is the total demand in period TAF, and T is any instant within this period. The end of cycle costing scheme is an extreme version of discrete costing, with the costing period taken to be equal with inventory cycle. Under the scheme, inventory is evaluated at the end of each cycle and is assumed to represent inventory for the entire cycle. So when we have a fixed rate deterministic demand, then this demand has this form. D of TAF is equal to D times T for any T in 0 TAF, in 0 T. Therefore, this relation always holds. And now we can give the end of cycle cost, and since these two relations hold, the next result restricts the state space of decision variable for S. The next lemma says that for any T, the optimal policy satisfies this relation, so we can consider values S that satisfy the previous lemma, and the problem now reduced to find S and T subject to this constraint, and the long run average cost has a more convenient form. The cost function is discretely convex in M, and again the optimal M is given by this relation, where again is the well-known parameter, and the optimal reorder level and order up to level is given again in the closed form expression, and also the total cost of the system. The following properties also hold. The optimal M is a step increasing in P. The optimal reorder level is decreasing in P, and the optimal cost is increasing in P. Again, the figures also verify our previous result. The figures the graphs are given for this data, and for different values of P and different values of parameter alpha. And computational now were performed to answer the following question. What is the effect of deploying heuristics that either ignore the existence of supply disruption or use an approximate model on system performance? So we use the continuous costing model optimal solution is considered to represent the exact optimal system cost, as happens for deterministic fixed rate demand. And the one heuristic ignore the supply process quality, so we use the EOQ model with backorder, and also we use an approximate cost heuristic solution. We use the end of cycle model solution. Using either of these models, we first evaluated their respective optimal policy variable, and then replace them to the continuous cost function to determine the respective cost. So we use this indicator where C star represent the optimal cost under the continuous costing model, and we use the subscript 0 and E to refer to an optimal policy variable evaluated using the EOQ and the end of cycle model respectively. And here we have the result. We have computational result that obtained for this value for K, D, and H, and the values of B and PS given in the table. And first we consider the impact of ignoring the effect of supply disruption. We can see that as the supply process deteriorates, this means the P increases, the cost difference always increases. And also we can see that there are differences in the respective optimizers. Also, we can see that this cost differences is greater as the backlogging cost becomes greater. And of course, the conclusion is that the use of models which ignore the process supply quality may have serious cost implications. More interesting are the results of using the approximate end of site cost model for determining the policy parameter. We can see that the use of end of cycle cost generally increases the cost differences. However, the increase is not uniform, and this is due to this jump. Here we can see from 1 to 2, we have a no uniform behavior, and this is due to the increase of the order up to level. So if we want to answer about the what heuristic outperform, the end of sale costing model will start outperforming of EOQ model is still suboptimal, leading to serious and even very serious cost increases. And some concluding remark. We studying a single echelon inventory installation controlled by the ST inventory policy with endogenous supply disruption, following an independent Bernoulli process under two different accounting schemes. We obtained the optimal solution for this deterministic model using the standard analysis for stochastic inventory system. Notice that the optimal order up to level is the solution of news vendor formulation for both costing scheme, and the form and the solution of the continuous costing model constitute a direct extension of the classical EOQ with backorder model if we allow for non-delivery foilers and reduce to later when P tends to 0. Here, there are we suggest some possibility for further research. For example, to deploy the analytical result of the deterministic demand system for optimizing respective stochastic demand system, to explore the performance of a heuristic where the review interval of the stochastic system is determined by the EOQ type closed form solution, given the quote performance of such heuristics observed for inventory system without disruption, we expect the results of such an investigation to be positive. To assume dependence between successive deliveries of defective batches, considering some time of correlation structure, and finally to relax the assumption of zero lead time. And here are some references. This is the work I have presented, and it is extension of this work. And finally, thank you for your kind attention.
Akanksha madam, you are on mute, please. Can you unmute, please?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, sir. Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge about deterministic demand and supply disruptions with us. After December, we are missing such valuable and interesting talk due to COVID-19. Your talk was full of enthusiasm and valuable knowledge. Now time for the questions. So, ma'am, please ask any questions from Professor sir. Professor. Ma'am, please ask if you have any.
Madam, when we talk about disruption,
Mhm.
for example, if there is disruption in raw material end or disruption in transportation end or maybe labor end, then can we coordinate it with what you say?
I cannot hear you very well.
Okay. When we are talking about supply chain disruption
Mhm.
due to COVID-19, there can be disruption because of lack of raw material
Mhm.
or labors because labors have moved to their places or maybe finished product. Lockdown is not allowing finished product to go to the destination. So can we coordinate all this and make a decision variable?
I think that as I said in
Okay, thank you.
I think that as I said in here, this model comply with this delivery contract. So if a delivery contract rely on this situation, then I think that this model is valid. I am not sure that I answer to your question because I cannot hear you very well.
No problem.
Okay, madam, can I
Yes.
just ask something? Uh, like, let's talk about the two
Mhm,
types of uncertainty that you mentioned: the supply uncertainty and,
mhm,
let's say, the yield uncertainty. Now, that is
mhm.
the disruption that you are talking about. Now, in such a case like coronavirus, can we have a kind of, there will be two separate kind of distributions, probability distributions that might work. The supply side and the disruption side. Maybe a joint probability distribution can be constructed, which can help us to combine both these together and maybe work on the sensitivities part of it. Uh, have you tried to explore, or any thoughts on that, ma'am? Can it work, or any idea,
Yes,
ma'am?
I think that is something similar that we work with PhD student. I guess that you mean that we can both situation. We have disruption and also we have defective product. For example, during the pandemic, also we have disruption and also we take products that are defective. For example, a mask or kit for examination. Yes, there are two areas of disruption. We can assume that the time that the supplier has no inventory is a random variable. And now in our model, we assume that this time interval is multiply of a certain period of t. But also this period could be an exponential, a time with exponential. There are some work on this field.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Akanksha, unmute. Akanksha, unmute.
Please unmute, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now let us move on to the next talk. It's my honor to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Professor Neeta H. Shah from Gujarat University, India. Professor Shah is head of Department of Mathematics, Gujarat University. Professor Shah is a postdoctoral research fellow of University of New Brunswick, Canada. Her research interests include inventory modeling in supply chain, robotic modeling, mathematical modeling of infectious disease, image processing, dynamical system and its applications, etc. She has published more than 475 peer-reviewed research papers in high-impact journals like Elsewhere, InterScience, and Taylor and Francis journals. She has authored 18 books and has successfully completed 3 UGC-sponsored projects. Having guided 28 PhD students, she received the Best PhD Guide Award from AIMS in 2019 and Best Paper Award from Gujarat Science Congress in 2020. She is Fellow of ISCA, Vice President of Operational Research Society of India, Council Member of Indian Mathematical Society, and the President of Operational Research Society of India, Ahmedabad chapter. With this, I request Professor Shah to share her knowledge with us through her talk on inventory policies under fuzzy and cloud fuzzy environment. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Milan. Can you see? Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Milan. And speakers, Professor Skuri and Professor Chuchu. My talk will be on inventory policies under fuzzy and cloud fuzzy environment. This is actually teamwork of Milan Patel, who is already on the dais, and full-time research fellow, getting fellowship from SOTH, Gujarat State Government, and Pratik Shah. Efficiently management of the inventory system has been the most vital job for any business firm, irrespective of smaller or bigger industry. So what is the size of the industry? It doesn't make any difference. Inventory has to be managed efficiently. A proper management of the inventory helps to prevent the stockout situation, to manage multiple locations and almost all aspects a business firm is having. Lack of attention to the inventory management may ripple the negative effect to the business firm. This statement is very true in the face of transmission of COVID-19 infection. If PPE kit is not available at the time when our health warrior requires, then they will not able to do medication of infectious people. Therefore, a lot of researchers from all over the globe are working on the development of inventory models that can solve inventory related issue. Now, mainly two issues are observed: when to order and how much to order. We start with the very beginning, that is Harris. In 1913, made the first attempt to develop an EOQ model. Agarwal in 2014 and Arrow, Godson and Gupte in 2016 reviewed the classical EOQ model in modern management context, because modern management is quite different from when it was developed by Professor Harris in 1930. Since classical EOQ model has many unrealistic assumptions, like demand is deterministic, costs, whatever inventory cost parameters are known and constant, but that is not the scenario what has been observed in the market. So many researchers studied different inventory models by relaxing and removing some assumptions or by incorporating prevailing marketing scenarios. Some of the inventory management systems are fit for any type of variations, but most of the business firms are dealing with the parameter which are highly uncertain in nature. Therefore, to model the inventory system with some impreciseness in data, Professor Jede took up the research on fuzzy set theory and under fuzzy environment, Park in 1987 developed first EOQ model. This fuzzy environment relates certain interval. That is, once I say that demand is of 1,000 units, it need not be 1,000 units for all the 7 days if you consider 1 week as a cycle time. On Monday, demand may be 200 units. On Sunday or on Saturday, on the other part of Asia, demand on Saturday and Sunday remains at the peak. So instead of 1,000, it may be 1,500. So we have a interval 700, 1,000, and 1,500. 3 different days on the week. So that this variation in demand between 700 to 1,500 can be vertical by fuzziness. Shah and Soni in 2018 worked on an inventory model with service level constraints under fuzzy environment. They have utilized managers K preference integration representation method for defuzzification. When you fuzzify objective function, obviously next step is to defuzzify, and myself and Dr. Soni use the K preference integration method for defuzzification. And we compared it with other defuzzification methods, and it has been observed that K preference integration gives better output as compared to the other defuzzification methods. Mohammad Azleh and Mirzada in 2018 formulated an inventory model for deteriorating items under fuzzy pricing. Fuzzy pricing is also one of the realistic situation because selling price doesn't remain fixed. They have assumed all deteriorating grades as fuzzy numbers. So 2 realistic situations have been incorporated by Mohammad Zadeh and Mirzada of fuzzy pricing and fuzzy deterioration rates in 2018. Every inventory practitioner must have experienced that as time progresses, uncertainty began to remove from the system. And this is what we had observed during March 22nd till now. Now the peak time of COVID-19 phase is getting slower down. So in COVID phase, when we were having, almost all countries were having lockdown phase. So in lockdown phase, retailer was under a soup with completely uncertain demand. But now, many of the countries have relaxed lockdown or relaxed lockdown period. So now retailers are getting demand at a fixed rate what we had before, that is pre-COVID phase. So what traditional concept of fuzzy set theory assumes fuzziness to be constant over time. So what we had during COVID phase and post-COVID phase, now this demand has started getting constant. Not only demand, number of inventory parameters has started getting constant over the time. Therefore, to overcome the limitation of fuzzy set theory, that all inventory parameters remains uncertain for whatever time horizon you can go with, D. N. Mahata introduced the concept of cloud fuzzy number and formulated an inventory model with back order under cloud fuzzy demand rate. So now let us see what is cloud fuzzy demand rate. Before that, what fuzzy set as defined by Jade, it is a set fuzzy set A in the universal set X is characterized by a membership function. It is f of Ax, which maps each element x of x to a real number in the interval 0, 1. Obviously, closed interval 0, 1. That is, if it is 0, there is no uncertainty. If it is 1, if it is 0, there is no uncertainty. If it is 1, there is 100% uncertainty in the variable. The value f(x) represents grade of membership of x in A. If I say x takes value 20, that is 0.2, that means that particular parameter is uncertain roundabout by 20%. This is widely used triangular fuzzy numbers. A fuzzy number for the form R1, R2, R3 with order R1 less than R2 less than R3 is known as triangular fuzzy number if it is characterized by its membership function, say mu rf, which is a function from x to close interval 0, 1, and x is universal set, as I said earlier, then its membership function is defined as, because it is triangular function, we can use standard geometry to define between interval R1 to R2 as x minus R1 upon R2 minus R1. In the interval R2 to R3, it is defined as x minus R3 into R2 minus R3, and 0 if x is less than R1 or greater than R3. Okay. Now, similarly, we can define cloud fuzzy number, and to my knowledge, with the literature review, Day and Beck in 2016 defined triangular fuzzy number, triangular cloud fuzzy number as R1, R2, R3, where R1 is R2 times Fn, R3 as R2 times Gn, where Fn and Gn are sequence of functions which converge to R2 as n tends to infinity. And hence, cloud fuzzy and parameter will converge to R2, which was constant 1. For example, let us have cloud fuzzy triangular numbers as R2 into 1 minus beta upon 1 plus t, R2, and third number is R2 into 1 plus gamma upon 1 plus t. Obviously, as I said previously, when t tends to infinity, 1 minus beta upon 1 plus t and 1 plus gamma upon 1 plus t will convert to R2, because both the terms will, beta upon 1 plus t and gamma upon 1 plus t will go to 0. So we have R2, R2, R2. So what I can say that cloud fuzzy parameter reduced to constant, and its constant, that is R2, and its membership function can be expressed as this. Obviously, t should be greater than 0 because we are working with real situations. So membership function will be defined as x minus R2 into 1 minus beta upon 1 plus t, if x lies between R2 into 1 minus beta upon 1 plus t and R2. And on the right side, it is R2 into 1 plus gamma upon 1 plus t minus x divided by gamma R2 upon 1 plus t, and 0 if it is either on the left side or if it is less than left side or greater than right side of the quantity. So now we have membership function for fuzziness and cloud fuzziness. Even one can think of going with the trapezoidal or Gaussian fuzzy numbers, or one can go with the triangular Gaussian fuzzy numbers. But at the end, everything will converge to triangular fuzzy, either cloud or fuzzy. Now, next concept we need is alpha cut of fuzzy number is a non-empty crisp set containing those elements from the universal set X whose membership value is greater than or equal to alpha. So this is similar to what we use in integer programming problem. If your solution is not coming out to be integer and you want integer solution, then we introduce cut, okay, Gromary cut. This is almost similar to, that is alpha cut is almost similar to Gromary cut, which we are using in the integer programming problem. Now, how we define this alpha cut? It is the set of all x from the universal set whose membership number is greater than or equal to alpha. The minimum and maximum value of the set of alpha cuts are known as left alpha cut, that is on the left side, that is minimum value, and right alpha cut on the right side of fuzzy number respectively. Based on the definition, left alpha cut we will represent as L alpha, and right alpha cut, that is R alpha, of triangular fuzzy number R1, R2, R3 can be expressed as, here we have left alpha cut is we want to define from the left side of R2, so we will have functional form R1 minus alpha into R1 minus R2, and our right alpha cut is R3 minus alpha into R3 minus R2. And similarly, for cloud fuzzy triangular number, we have alpha cuts. Our left alpha cut, now it will depend upon alpha and time. So we will say L alpha t to be R2 into 1 minus beta upon 1 plus t plus alpha beta R2 upon 1 plus t. And on the right side, we will have R2 into 1 plus alpha, 1 plus gamma upon 1 plus t minus alpha gamma R2 upon 1 plus t. Now, once I had converted crisp model to fuzzy or cloud fuzzy and done defuzzified using any method which I said in triangular fuzzy number using alpha cut. Now, next one, we will use Jaeger's ranking method. It was given in 1981 for triangular fuzzy number. And according to this method, defuzzified value of triangular fuzzy number, that is F, can be given by 1 by 2 integration 0 to 1 sum of left alpha cut plus right alpha cut with respect to alpha. And that will defuzzify the fuzzified of the function. Using the values which we had in the previous slide of alpha cuts, that is left alpha cut and right alpha cut, if I put it here and sum it up, the formula for Jaeger's ranking index of RF reduces to 1 by 4 into R1 plus 2R2 plus R3. This looks like a weightage mean. Okay, this is what we do. And D'Alembert defuzzified method for cloud triangular fuzzy number, they said we can have a Jaeger's ranking index for cloud fuzzy parameter. Now we have two parameter, one is alpha and second is time. So it is given by 1 upon 2t integration, that is sum up over the time from 0 to capital cycle time, and alpha, that is we are because we had an interval 0 to 1, so 0 to 1 is the range of alpha, sum up of left and right alpha cut with respect to time t, and sum up with respect to first alpha and then t. Then simplification can be given by Jaeger's ranking index for cloud fuzzy parameter to be R2 into 1 plus gamma minus beta log 1 plus t upon 4t. And this suggests that gamma should be greater than b. And if you recollect just the definition of fuzziness, cloud fuzziness, we had gamma to be on the right side, that is, it was on the right alpha cut. Now, how much degree of fuzziness should be approved? That should be a major question. So, degree of fuzziness of a triangular fuzzy number can be calculated using the formula u minus L upon 2m, where obviously u is the upper bound, L is the lower bound of triangular fuzzy number, and M is mode of triangular fuzzy number, and we will define as 3 median minus 2 min. So this will give us whether your data is having degree of fuzziness in the confidence limit or not. Now, degree of fuzziness of cloud triangular fuzzy number, which is known as cloud index, can be calculated using log 1 plus t upon t. So this says under cloud fuzzy environment, variation in the uncertainty depends upon the time. That is, for how much time this variation remains. Now, coming to the model, we will use standard notations: C to be purchase cost, H to be holding costs, A to be ordering cost, and this is in terms of dollar per unit. Theta, that is the deterioration rate, lies between 0 and 1. We have considered deterioration rate to be constant, but one can think of doing it with time dependent, which is more logical. And even one can think of using fixed time, that is the lifespan of the product is fixed, so deterioration rate can be taken in terms of fixed lifespan. R is demand rate per year. K, total cost in crisp sense, and wherever subscript F comes, it is in fuzzy sense, and where subscript C comes, it is in cloud fuzzy sense. T is cycle time, and for our model, it is a decision variable. If cycle time is decision variable, Q automatically goes, Q is order quantity per cycle, turns out to be decision variable. The model assumes some assumptions. Shortages are not permitted. Replenishment occurs immediately on ordering. So lead time can be considered 0 or negligible. Because if PPE kit is ordered, we have to do immediate replenishment. One cannot have lead time. No doubt, lead time, whatever is, if it comes from US or if it comes from Bangalore or Surat to Ahmedabad, some time phase is always there. So, but that can be ignored. So that's why we are saying lead time is 0 or negligible. No replenishment or repairing of deteriorating items occurs during planning horizon. So if this PPE kit is not of the proper quality, it will not be getting repaired. That is quite obvious because it has to be manufactured according to medical research norms, but that you have to throw it away. So it carries some salvage value. No doubt we have not considered salvage value of such items. Planning horizon of an inventory system is considered to be infinite, though it is from March till now, so almost 5 months. But this 5 months is planning horizon, but we have considered this 5 months can be considered as infinite. Demand rate, deterioration rate, purchase cost, holding costs, and ordering costs are assumed to be constant in CRISP model, whereas in fuzzy and cloud fuzzy model, they are considered to be triangular fuzzy numbers or cloud triangular fuzzy numbers. So all the parameters we are considering it to be either in fuzzy sense or cloud fuzzy sense. Okay, let us formulate the model. Assume that the inventory starts with order quantity Q. Due to constant demand rate R and constant deterioration rate theta, the inventory starts decreasing and vanishes at the end of cycle time T. Therefore, according to classical model, that is EOQ, model for deteriorating item, the total inventory cost per unit time is this. Here, first component is deteriorating cost and it is given by this formula. Then we have holding cost and we have ordering cost. So objective is to optimize total cost under CRIS environment is given by minimize K subject to Q equal to RD, and obviously Q should be non-negative because we say that we are not going to allow any shortages. Okay, now let us have a fuzzy model. CRIS mathematical model assumes all the inventory parameters to be deterministic or constant, which is unrealistic assumption for practical implementations. So, assume inventory parameters, holding cost, purchase cost, ordering cost, demand rate, and deterioration rate to be triangular fuzzy numbers. Now, using triangular fuzzy number, alpha cut, and Young's ranking, the objective function in fuzzy sense reduces to this. That is Kf, because now everything is fuzzy. So we will have minimize total cost in fuzzy sense to be Hf plus Cf over theta f divided by T theta f square Rf into E theta ft minus theta ft minus 1 plus ordering cost, that is AF upon T, subject to QF is equal to RFT, obviously non-negative. So now all inventory parameters are fuzzy. Okay. So we want to get into fuzziness. So we will have F1K as K minus K1 upon K2 minus K1. If K lies, K is total cost. If it lies between K1 and K2, and K3 minus K upon K2 minus K3 if it lies between K2 and K3 and 0 otherwise, that is outside the interval. Here, this Ki is given by Hi plus Ci theta I upon T theta I square into RL into E theta I, that is exponential theta it minus theta it minus 1 plus Ai upon T. So I is 1, 2 and 3. 2 is constant 1 and 1 on left and 3 on the other side. Membership function of order quantity also we are required to find out. So that is Q minus Q1 upon Q2 minus Q1 if Q lies between Q1 and Q2. And similarly, if it lies between Q2 and Q3, it is given by Q minus Q3 upon Q2 minus Q3 and 0 outside the interval, where Qi is equal to RIT. To get the defuzzified value of the objective function under fuzzy sense, Jaeger's ranking index method, as I said, we will apply, and defuzzified value of the fuzzy objective function can be expressed in this form. So now we have defuzzified. So we are once again back with the defuzzified approach, that is Young's ranking index. So now I have this function to be optimized. And correspondingly, we will have value of optimum quantity, order quantity in fuzziness concept. Now, about the cloud fuzziness model, to extend CRIS mathematical model under cloud fuzzy environment, we assume all the parameters to follow triangular cloud fuzzy numbers. And we have replaced F by C. So my objective function is minimize total cost under cloud fuzzy environment subject to order quantity, which is also now cloud fuzzy parameter. So we have a cloud fuzzy function, total cost. Now this total cost will depend upon two variables, that is d1 k of t, almost that remains same, and k1 is given by this, or in fact I can say k1 and k2 respectively. You can get from left and right side of the cloud fuzzy triangular numbers. So K2 we also have, and also we have K3. The K2 is middle one, K1 on the left side of K2, and K3 on the right side. That is how much uncertainty it can be handled. By applying extension of Jaeger's ranking, here I said extension because now I have two parameters which are uncertain, that is alpha and capital T, that is when fuzziness will get resolved, that is what should be the time. We have considered time to be infinitely approaching to infinity, that is for sufficiently large time. Here I have a function, objective function, and what is the constraint is subject to Jaeger's ranking index for the procurement quantity under cloud fuzzy environment. So for CRISP model, let us visualize using data. We have holding cost to be $2.5, purchase cost to be $10, ordering cost to be $120, deterioration rate is 5%, and demand to be 100 units. Now, when we move from crisp to fuzzy, so we have to go with both the ends. So holding cost in fuzziness is 2.5, 1.5, 2.5, and 3. Similarly, purchase costs, ordering costs, that is, it varies between 60 to 140. Deterioration rate may vary from 0.025 to 6%, and demand may vary from 60 to 120 in a horizon, that is our scheduling time. And similarly, for cloud fuzzy, we will have to introduce two more parameters, that is gamma, that is 15%, beta, that is 85%, and epsilon to be 20%. So we had calculated, we have calculated total costs in crisp, fuzzy, and cloud fuzzy. You can see that in crisp, it is much higher than what it should be, but cloud fuzzy can handle total cost significantly to a low level. And we have total cost in cloud fuzzy environment with respect to cycle time, and you can see that when it follows the convex behavior, what we always say, even starting from 1913, which was given by Harris. Here we have total cost with respect to time. One can see that total crisp is given by dark orange color, and light yellow shade is giving cloud fuzzy. So it says that crisp cost is always much higher compared to fuzzy cost or cloud fuzzy cost. But if you compare fuzzy cost and cloud fuzzy cost, it gives me interpretation that for sufficiently large time, fuzzy cost will reduce to cloud fuzzy cost. And this says that a green shaded result says that under cloud fuzzy cost for 0.92 years, total cost turns out to be the minimum one. Where obviously when we have data that is validated, the next job is to have the sensitivity analysis to find out which is the most critical inventory parameter that should be handled very tactically. And it says that when ordering cost is varied in the range -20% to 20%, the total inventory cost fluctuates from minus 16.13% to 13.99%. So you can say that this parameter has to be tackled very significantly, like minutely. One should go with variation in ordering cost. So hence ordering cost is the most sensitive parameter for inventory system. And this is quite obvious because we are observing that, at least in India, we are observing that transportation costs, in the sense petrol and diesel prices, are fluctuating every day. So total ordering cost will vary, and accordingly total inventory cost will vary. Further, holding costs and demand rate both are having less sensitive as compared to ordering costs. So no doubt they are sensitive, but not up to the ordering costs, and they exhibit almost same sensitivity. Now, when we talk about purchase cost and rate of deterioration, obviously, once again, next to ordering costs, purchase cost and deterioration rate plays a vital role in defining inventory parameter. And it says that the total inventory cost increases, and but they both have very less sensitivity as compared to other parameters. Here, these other parameters are in terms of ordering cost. Now, whether the model which I have developed is validated, that is, it comes in the confidence level. Here, confidence level is defined in terms of degree of fuzziness. So we will talk about degree of fuzziness in fuzzy model and cloud fuzzy model. For fuzziness, degree of fuzziness in fuzzy model, it turned out to be 0.40, that is 40%. So variation is 40% at any time, and that in cloud fuzziness is 0.30, that is 30% at optimum cycle time. Okay, and obviously, when cloud fuzziness degree is less than degree of fuzziness, that means your uncertainty problem in inventory parameters is getting solved, and therefore it is more stable. That is, retailers should not worry about, or the market should not worry about the uncertainty for a longer time. So we say that less uncertainty, and therefore it is more stable, or will get more stable and reliable. So don't get panic, and wait for some time. The uncertainty will get resolved. So this is what is from my end. Questions are welcome.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge on fuzzy and the newly introduced concept of cloudy fuzzy. Ma'am, we have one question from one of our participants,
Yeah.
Mr. Vishal Khare. He's trying to ask, suggest some books on inventory control for
You
research
can
purpose.
go not only one book. I'm giving you number of books, or Professor Gaur can also give number of books. One can go with Nedor, Inventory System by Nedor. One can also read book on principles of inventory management by Tersign. These two books are the best books which I started when I started my research.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, is there any other question from our speakers?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Akansha to introduce our next speaker.
But our next speaker is not present, so maybe some internet connectivity. So
No, he
that's
should be.
why.
Akansha, madam, he should be there. He should be
Is
there.
there?
But
Yeah, Professor
he's
Ujwan is with us also.
Let me check with Jaggi sir. He was. He is
No,
there. He
Jaggi
is
sir is here.
Jaggi
Jaggi
sir
sir is here.
Good morning, sir. Sir,
Sir,
unmute
please
your mic. Sir, unmute your mic. Yeah. Carry
Good
on,
morning, sir.
Akash.
Our next speaker is Professor Chandra K. Jaggi. Professor Jaggi is currently working as professor in the Department of Operational Research, University of Delhi, India. His research interests lie in the field of supply chain and inventory management. He has enriched research experience with around 150 publications in journals of high repute. He is the recipient of Academic Excellence Award, Lifetime Achievement, International Best Researcher Award, Certificate of Excellence Bharat Vikas Award, Best Teacher Award, IEOM Outstanding Service Award USA, certificate for his exceptional contribution in the field of inventory management, certificate for his significant contributions in operation management, and many more national and international awards of excellence. He is fellow member of Operational Research Society of India and International Science Community Association. He is on the editorial board of many internationally reputed journals. He will be giving a talk on exploring different realistic aspects of inventory management. I now invite him to enlighten us with his talk. Again,
It,
sorry.
seems, it seems that he has some problem. Let me check.
Yeah.
Cámara on, camera on.
I think there is some internet issue, so please wait. We are trying to fix the issue.
different scenarios. The inventory modeling for deteriorating items, declining function, inventory depletion, spend, and media-induced demand, inflationary condition, trade credit, and on it. This it is basically defined by Fred Hansen as an ideal source of any kind, provided that such a resource has economic value. Money word go around, inventory makes logistic go around. Now, these are the basics. I just by Lord Harris, and then subsequently it was also developed. The formula was named after the person. We are stock dependent is take care, media induced demand, and imperfect. Now, basically, we feel that it is things are not potential utility over over a period of time. That means it is a gradual loss of potential utility over passage of time. In such scenario, the effect of duration cannot be ignored in any of the inventory studies, basically. Now, deterioration, that we call it as a perishability, that quality deterioration, then you have a utility deterioration. But perishability, we all know that is basically it has a fixed lifetime.
这题发出有差别地方哪一半呢？你们说
The product go and in 1963, basically long back. That is where the how into it is basically how going to the time data. That is your section.
Professor Shah, can you just see your phone, please, Professor Shah?
Hello, Akanksha. Akanksha, we go with the next speaker. It seems that Professor Jackie is having some problem.
Akanksha madam, can you please on your mic? Akanksha ma'am, on your mic.
Yes.
Mute on.
Yeah.
Mute on.
Yes.
Let us go with the next speaker.
So we are going to with next speaker. So I would like to invite Mr. Milan to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. Our
Mr.
next
Milan,
speaker
please.
is Professor Newman Pujwan. Newman Pujwan is a professor of supply chain engineering at the Department of Industrial Engineering at Sepula November Institute of Technology, Indonesia. He received PhD in Management Science from Lancaster University, UK. He also holds Certified Supply Chain Professional from APICS, USA. His papers have appeared in many high-profile international journals, including the European Journal of Operational Research, International Journal of Production Economics, International Journal of Production Research, etc. He is currently the president of the Indonesian Supply Chain and Logistics Institute. He is the editor-in-chief of Operations and Supply Chain Management and also in the editorial board of few other international journals. He will be giving a talk on some contribution on modeling lot sizing inventory problems. We have a great opportunity to listen to this very interesting talk by Professor Pujwan. Over to Professor Pujwan.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my slide first. All right. Is it visible to you?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Please. No, sir.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to thank Professor Shah and all the organizer of this virtual conference on inventory modeling. Yes, I would like to share my work on lot sizing models. I have been working in this area for quite a long time. So some of the result that I'm presenting here is not really very much recent, but I'm trying to actually bring all together many of the different aspects of lot sizing problems in inventory. So I'm not focusing on only one aspect of inventory. I'm not going to be very much detailed on one aspect, but instead it is just like a summary of different works that I have been doing since quite some time ago. All right, so as a summary, as a start, this is probably the major outline of what I'm trying to present today. So I will start with properties of lot sizing rules under different demand pattern, including what is called lumpy demand and uncertain demand. I have few papers published about this. So one was published in International Journal of Production Economics, and two papers published in European Journal of Operational Research, including the one that talk about the augmentation quantity, where augmentation quantity is basically adding certain quantity beyond the expected demand to buffer against uncertainty. And then recently, I worked with doctoral students to develop models on more recent issues related to closed loop system, which include remanufacturing, and then also on the pricing issues. So we include some environmental aspect in the modeling of lot sizing decision, and also on green investment that is now the work of one of my doctoral students. So that is more or less the general outline of the presentation today. Let me start with the general problems in a supply chain. So I have been working with a lot of companies on supply chain issues, and one of the major problem is always related to the demand pattern or demand uncertainty. And demand that is received by a company is not always natural. It is very often a result of the process at the customer. Suppose that you are a supplier supplying to manufacturing company, or even you are a manufacturing company supplies to a distributor, for example, or even you are supplying to stores, then the demand that you receive is not really reflecting the actual demand at the end. So the order that you receive is very much already distorted. So that's why now when we talk about supply chain management, people are dealing with what is called schedule instability, bullwhip effect, etc., where schedule instability is actually reflecting that we are changing or we are dealing with too much changes because of uncertainty, because your customer are revising orders, maybe in the form of revising the quantity up and down, or changing the delivery due dates, moving forward or backward from the initial agreed delivery time. So that is a big problem. If you are working in a manufacturing company and you are using MRP, for example, as a tool to schedule procurement of materials or component, you are very much actually affected by the way your customer are ordering to you. And also when we talk about the information distortion in the supply chain, where the order pattern that you receive is very much not reflecting the actual demand at the customer side. So that the demand that you receive is very much already distorted because probably of the motives to achieve the economies of scale. So you are ordering more than the actual demand, or maybe because your forecast is not accurate. Yeah. Much of these are related to the way of planning, scheduling, and ordering pattern in any members of the supply chain. So that was actually the motives why I was looking at the properties of lot sizing rules, because when your customer is applying a lot sizing rules that is embedded in your ERP system, for example, and they don't know the impact of those ordering pattern, actually, those lot sizing rules on the ordering pattern, then they are not aware of the problem created on your side. Well, this work was actually dated back to some time ago when I was started to look at the properties of lot sizing rules. Because traditionally, if you are applying MRP, you probably are familiar with such lot sizing rules as silver mill, lease unit cost, part period balancing, etc., where very often if you are implementing ERP system, those lot sizing rules are already embedded in the ERP system. But many of people who are implementing ERP do not recognize the difference in those lot sizing rules, especially if we are talking about the demand pattern created, and that will impact on your suppliers. So my early work was looking at the property of lot sizing rules that can be applied for time varying demand, where the demand is not constant over time. So for example, demand in period 1 is different from the demand in period 2. And then there are stochastic property in the demand, where you have some error probability in any demand that you are actually putting in your plan. So my early work was looking at basically a couple of different lot sizing rules. In most of my papers, I was trying to compare between two lot sizing rules that were traditionally very popular. And I think many people consider that these two rules are very, very similar. And well, if demand is constant over time, lease unit cost and silver mill are producing exactly the same result. Unfortunately, when demand starts to vary over time, especially when demand is not certain over time, the two start to diverge. So the properties that are shown by least unit cost and silver mill are significantly different. So I was trying actually to explore how differences are these two lot sizing rules when you are dealing with unstable demand, when the demand from one period to the other is not constant, is not the same, especially if uncertainty present in your demand forecast. Yeah. So I was looking at the what is called time between order or different ordering cycle, and also in terms of order quantity. So order cycle or time between order represent what is the average interval between orders. So the more certain the interval between orders, the better it is from the perspective of the supplier. So if I have a supplier with very unstable order cycle, so sometimes the interval is only 1 week, sometimes interval is 2 weeks, and sometimes interval is only 3 days, then to me as a supplier, that will create a big problem. So I'm trying to look at those two different lot sizing rules and try to find out which one is actually creating a more stable demand or more stable orders in terms of both order cycle as well as order quantity. Just a little bit reminder, probably some of you are not familiar with silver mill rule and least unit cost rule. So these two are actually very, very simple actually. We are trying to find what is the number of the number of period that we will cover in one order. Yeah. Let's say that I have at the bottom part of my slide now, I have a demand for 8 periods. So in period 1, the demand is 200 and then followed by 50 and then 350 and 200. Suppose that we are making decision to order in period 1, the option is to include only demand in period 1, where in that case, your order will be 200, or probably cover also period 2, where in that case, your order will be 250, or probably cover more than that. So your order will be just the sum up of the demand in the periods where you will cover in one order. Now the silver mill is trying to find the best order quantity by minimizing total cost per period. So when you are ordering in period 1, for sure there is an order cost at the beginning. And if you include the demand in period 2, then you need to carry inventory of 50 at the end of period 1. So there will be a holding cost of 50 unit of demand for one period. And then you divide by 2 because you're covering 2 periods. If covering 1 period is more expensive than covering 2 periods, meaning that the cost per period of covering 2 periods is lower, then you keep moving up to cover 3 periods until at some point you start observing the increase in the cost per period. Then you stop there, meaning you already achieve the local optimum, because this is a heuristic procedure. It is providing you a local optimum. So that is silver mill. Now, least unit cost is very similar, except you are looking at cost per unit rather than cost per period. So the denominator here is not the number of periods that you will cover in one order, but rather the quantity of the demand that you will include in one order. So that's why average cost in period 2 is divided by quantity that include demand in period 1 and period 2, while if you're covering 3 periods, you divide it by QT, which is the total demand of period 1, 2, and 3. And the stopping rule is the same whenever you start observing an increase in cost per unit, then you stop, because at that point you already obtain the minimum cost per period. So that is a local optimum as well. There are a lot of questions related to the current problem in supply chain management. Because when, for example, you are working in a manufacturing company, you are planning for purchasing component or materials, very often you are dealing with what is called lumpy demand. Most of the lot sizing rules initially was designed to deal with quite stable demand, which is happening every period. But what is happening if your demand is lumpy? If your demand is not coming every period, there are a lot of demand with zero demand. So that was one of the work that I did. I'll show you in a minute. That is the first one. Now, how about the demand? If the demand is time varying, it is happening every period, but the quantity is not quite stable. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier. Now, how if you are dealing with uncertainty? For example, if you say demand in period 3 is 350, that was your prediction in period 1. When you are moving to period 2, that number is already changing. So your decision in period 1 may be much lower or much higher than the quantity that you should have been when the new information is already coming in period 2. So in that case, probably you need a kind of buffering strategy, adding some what is called safety stock, but probably it's not really the same as the traditional safety stock that we have, but you need to adjust a little bit. So I also work on that. And then what is the optimum buffering strategy in that case? And then if you are looking more holistically, probably you need also to look at what is the impact of different order variability on the total cost at your supplier. So we are looking at the supply chain. So you are not looking at one stage in the supply chain, because the demand pattern that you create will impact on the total cost at your supplier. So that is the basic idea of most of my work that I'm trying to present here. So the first one is, how do you deal with lumpy demand? So lumpy demand, as I put in here, is demand where it is not happening every period. So for example, if you see here the first table that I show you, you have very idealistic demand where it is happening 200 units in every period. All lot sizing rules will work perfectly if you have that kind of demand. Unfortunately, it is very rare, maybe unrealistic actually, to assume that demand will have that kind of pattern. Most of the time, if you are looking at the demand of material, especially if you have a custom component like packaging, for example, rather than raw materials, you will observe the demand like the second table below there. Well, there are a lot of periods where you don't have any demand. And lumpy demand received by a supplier is arising because the buyer is using inventory ordering system or a deterministic lot sizing procedure in an ERP or MRP system, which lead to a decision not to order every period. I was publishing one paper on properties of lot sizing rules under lumpy demand in production economics quite a long time ago. And in that paper, actually, I was looking at what is called boundary value of order costs. So if the two lot sizing rules are actually performing exactly the same, making exactly the same decision, then the boundary order cost would be the same. What is the boundary order cost here? It is the magnitude of order costs that will make you to change from covering T period to T plus 1 period, or the magnitude of order costs that make you indifference between covering 3 period or 4 period, for example, if you are talking about 3 and 4 in this case. Yeah. So I was trying to analytically looking at the property of different lot sizing rules, and it was actually turned out to be very interesting result. We got very interesting result where people have been talking about lot sizing rules by using simulation, by using some other methodology, but none was actually trying to look at from the analytical perspective how they are actually different when you are dealing with lumpy demand. So we have lumpy demand here where P represent the period between demand. So when P is 3, then demand is occurring every 3 periods only. When P is 4, then demand is occurring every 4 periods only. Well, of course, when we are talking about analytical properties, we can only limit to some certain regular issues. Like in this case, we are looking at the constant time between demand and also equal demand quantity when it is happening. So, but it gives a lot of insight at the beginning. But in that paper, I also was trying to simulate if those numbers are actually changing randomly. That was the first one. Secondly, I published one paper in European Journal of Operational Research on the effect of lot sizing rules on order variability. So again, I was looking at the difference of the properties between least unit cost and silver mill method when you apply now not lumpy demand, but now you apply it. I apply it to uncertain demand. Well, demand is happening every period, but there is some level of uncertainty. So I was assuming that demand is following a normal distribution, and we were actually able to derive some of the analytical properties of the different lot sizing rules when demand is actually following normal distribution. And of course, if you are talking about normal distribution, then it implies that demand is not constant. It has some variability, which is represented by the standard deviation of the demand. Because this is a very important issue. Even though I published it quite some time ago, still I believe this is a major issue when you are managing a supply chain. So if your demand is having a large variability, it will be more costly for you to deal with that demand. So you probably don't really know why demand is getting uncertain or getting varied from time to time. And if you look at the ERP system that most companies are using, this is actually one of the sources that probably people do not really understand, that the different lot sizing rules that they are using are actually impacting on the order variability that you issue to your supplier. Yeah. So how did I compare the order variability? So I was looking at the 4 different performance of 4 different results here. One is in terms of the average order interval. Secondly, in the variance of order interval. Sorry, not internal, it is order interval. So time between order. So if the average order interval is, let's say, 4, but the variance is 3, then meaning that the time between order is highly uncertain. Yeah. I also look at the order quantity in terms of the mean value or the average value as well as the variance. So we can look at from those 2 things. One is time between order or order cycle. And the second one is on the order quantity. How stable is your order interval? And how stable is your order quantity? Of course, if you are sitting at the point of supplier, you would really like to have an order from your customer that has stable order interval as well as stable order quantity from one order to the other. And actually, it is very interesting to observe, as I mentioned earlier, that we compare between silver mill and least unit cost that were performing exactly the same under constant demand. When we introduce a little bit of uncertainty in the demand, actually they turn out to be very, very different in terms of the ordering pattern. Yeah. So the black bar here representing the order pattern created by the silver mill rule, while the other one is created by the least unit cost rules. And we have been able to derive some of the analytical property of the lot sizing rules. I'm not going to be very much focused on the mathematical formulation here. So basically, you are differentiating between the planned order and the realized order. So at the beginning, probably you plan to cover 3 periods of demand. Because your demand is uncertain, maybe it is possible that actually you have to move forward your next order. So let's say in period 1, you are actually covering 3 period demand. So then by plan, you should have a new order in period 4. But because your demand is actually higher than what you predicted, you experience shortage at the end of period 3 if you keep your original plan. So now to avoid that kind of shortage, you have to move that order that was initially in period 4 to period 3. So that's why now here we have what is called probability that the planned order interval is M, but actually the actual order interval may not be M. Yeah, it is very likely that your order will be also M-1, meaning that you are moving forward for 1 period. So it depending also on the degree of variability of the uncertainty is small. Like for example, your demand has a mu of 200, but the standard deviation is only 10% of your mu, then it is very unlikely that you need to move forward 2 periods. In most of the time, you only need to change from 4 to 3 or from 5 to 4. Yeah. So I was looking at the situation where the order variability is quite small. It's not much. So that's why it is quite simple actually to derive the expected order interval, the variant of order intervals for both lot sizing rules, including also the expected order quantity and the variance of order quantity of the 2 lot sizing rules, by assuming that the forecast error, the error in your forecast is actually following the normal distribution. So your demand is actually moving up and down around the mean value with a certain standard deviation following normal distribution. So if that is the situation, it is quite straightforward actually to observe the variant as well as the mean value of your ordering pattern. And that was the case when actually you didn't try to put what is called extra quantity on your order. Because if I go back to the table that I show you, let's say the demand is 200, 200, and 200. Now, if you decided to cover 3 periods of demand, meaning that your order in period 1 is 600 units, and it is very likely that during 3 periods, your demand is actually more than 600. And I think everyone understand, if you are familiar with normal distribution, it is very obvious actually. If you don't have any extra quantity and you order at the mean value, your service level is only 50%. There is 50% probability that you will experience shortage at the end of the period. And in that case, you have to move forward your order to an earlier period. and that probability is actually 50%, almost 50%. If you are looking at the actual data, if you have a constant constant mean with a normal distribution pattern, then that probability is actually equal to 50%. Now, the idea is how to reduce that probability by adding what is called here extra quantity, which will have a function like a safety stock, yeah? But we treat it quite differently, because now we are adding that extra quantity to the order that you place in period 1. Let's say if you predict the demand is 200, 200, and 200, and you decided to cover 3 period demand, then initially your demand will be 600. Now you add some quantity to that 600. Let's say you add 50. Yeah, you add 50. So you are ordering more than the expected demand. That will act as a buffer. So that is the idea, and we explore that possibility, and we are trying to add different levels of buffering, and we have the result and also presented in that paper. Now, another paper is also still working on that idea. So we published a later paper on the augmentation quantity. So this is augmentation quantity. So the eta value here is actually the augmentation quantity. In my earlier paper, I just put augmentation quantity equal to 0.51 or 1.5 of the standard deviation of demand. I was not trying to find out what is actually the optimum augmentation quantity under a certain pattern of demand. So in this paper, we were trying to develop an analytical formula that provide us the optimum or the best augmentation quantity when your demand is probabilistic. So we focus on the silver mill procedure, where basically we try to minimize cost per period. So because demand is uncertain, now the cost per period can only be obtained in terms of the expected value, not the exact value. Yeah, because then the number of period that you cover may not be constant or may not be deterministic, and that the number of period that you are covering also not deterministic. So that's why here we have expected total relevant cost per unit time is expected total relevant cost divided by the expected interval or time period that you are covering in one order. We transform the problem to what is known as order up to level decision, where probably many of you are familiar with small s, capital S inventory control policy, S inventory control policy, where the small s is actually like reorder point. So the point where you need to reorder, and the capital S will limit your order quantity to a certain maximum. So here we transform the ordering mechanism from an ordinary lot sizing rules that we use silver mill to an S inventory control model, where the capital S is actually represented by the first period demand plus the expected demand of a certain period from T to any T that we wish to cover, plus what is new here is the A, which is the augmentation quantity. So that is equal to eta at my earlier paper. And we try to use knowledge on conventional safety stock definition or safety stock formulation to that. So we are adding that quantity to the order, but we set it as a capital S, not as the order quantity. So which is quite different here between order quantity and maximum inventory that you can have. Because just a reminder, because some of you probably are not familiar with SS, when your inventory actually drops to small s or lower, what you need is actually to order to bring your inventory position back to capital S. So now your order quantity is actually equal to capital S minus the inventory that you have at the point you are ordering. So that is capital S minus I. So we developed two approximate procedure. One is called simple approximation, which is basically just adding safety stock based on the standard deviation of the demand forecast over a certain period of time. And then the other one is actually we are developing a more complicated procedure, but I don't think that I have enough time to explain that. So we are comparing between we are comparing the performance in terms of costs, in terms of total costs, both for simple procedures and the complex procedures. These two we are developing. And then as a benchmark is that we don't add any augmentation quantity. So M equal to 0 means you are not adding any augmentation quantity. So in that case, I think it is quite obvious from the table here, when you don't have any augmentation quantity, cost is always much, much higher than if you attempt to use any procedure that I propose here. And very often, actually, the two procedures that we are proposing is able to match the optimum cost. Yeah, so able to match the optimum cost. So we are very much satisfied with the performance of the two procedures that we were developing. So that was the quite early development of the lot sizing works that I carried out in my career as a researcher. Recently, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, I worked with doctoral students on extending the issue of lot sizing decision on different aspects, more complex system, and addressing more recent issues like sustainability, a closed loop system, as well as pricing decision. So one of students that already finished was looking at a closed loop system where actually there is a remanufacturing activity here, where manufacturing company is producing the product and then selling it to the retailer is selling to the customer. And when the product is already no longer able to use, then there is a possibility to collect those used products for remanufacturing. So this manufacturer is actually doing both manufacturing a new product as well as remanufacturing the used product. And the issue here is to find the pricing decision. So the pricing decision, what would be the price that is optimum for the manufacturing company to give to the retailer, both for new and remanufacturing product? What would be the price that the retailer has to set for new as well as remanufacturing product, as well as the price in other relationship here. So we published already a couple of papers related to that one. So one is in operation research perspective, that the model was applied to short life cycle product like a mobile phone, etc. So I think I don't have time to explain it, and that is mainly the work of my doctoral student. And I think if you are interested, the paper is available in Science Direct. But basically, the result from that model is that because we were looking at different relationship scenario, one is assuming that each party is working separately, independently, and the other scenario is where different parties are actually collaborating in finding the optimum pricing. So one of the results, which is not surprising, is that the profit under integrated model is higher, and none of the player is getting worse off by moving from the independent to joint profit model. That was one of the results. Secondly, the total demand is significantly higher under the integrated model. This is interesting because probably if you are offering lower price, demand will be higher, and every party in the supply chain are better off. And the last finding was that the lack of coordination in making the pricing decision has led the independent model to set high retail price. If you are setting too high retail price, that will make your demand is too small, meaning that probably potentially that will reduce the profit of each party. And another work was actually looking at the quality of the used product, because when you are collecting used product, not all of those collected used product are actually in a good quality, in a quality that is sufficient for remanufacturing. So one of the work was also published in Operation Research Perspective, was also dealing with closed loop supply chain when the yield is random and also the demand is random. And the last work now is actually, well, we have one paper with Professor Shah actually dealing with rework, disposal, and green investment issue. So that was also published in Operation Research Perspective very recently. And I think one of my doctoral students now is trying to look at if you have two alternative production systems. One is a regular production system, and the other one is green production system, where under green production system, probably the cost is higher because you need to invest more. But being green means that the emission is lower. So if we are not just looking at the cost perspective, but also looking at the environmental issue, this is a non-straightforward decision. So you have to consider both emission as well as total cost. So I think that's basically the work that I'm trying to share with you. And I hope some of you probably get some insight on developing the models for your doctoral student or for your study in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable talk on lot sizing inventory model. So is there any question from Professor Sharma sir or Nita ma'am or sir?
Professor Puzwan, it was a very nice presentation and it has given a lot of depth.
Thank you.
The lot sizing problem. In case of time-varying demand, if there are more number of zeros,
Yes.
Is how the actually will the silver mill heuristic will be equally effective?
Yeah, I think we already did some experiments. If zero is actually much dominating, it is not really giving a satisfactory result. I think there are some other stream of works that were trying to to suggest the rules or the methodology that you can use if the zero demand is really a lot during your planning horizon. That was actually based on a work developed by Croston, I think. Yeah. So if any of you are familiar with a spare part inventory problem where maybe the demand is only happening in 1 month within a year, I think lot sizing rules like silver mill, least unit cost is not intended to deal with that. But there are, as I mentioned, there are some works that is started by Croston to deal with that kind of many zero demand within the planning horizon. And I think a lot of follow-up works actually based on Croston models. Thank you very much.
Professor Sharma, response to your question, I am using very small quantity instead of using zero, because zero is creating problem in coding also. So instead of zero, we can put very small quantity, maybe 10 or maybe 1.
Yeah.
Then it solves a problem.
Actually, I was
solves a
just
problem.
talking from the point of view of spare parts management. Normally in the spare parts inventory, if you see that some of the spare parts you will have a demand in a particular period and there will be no demand for a very long number of periods, and after that again demand will come. So can we, in that case, how it will be effective? That is what actually. Yeah.
So what? It hardly happens that there won't be any demand. So you can use very small demand. You can use very small demand and go ahead with the analysis. That is what I have done in my paper.
Thank you, Professor Puzan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Okay. Nitam, there is one question with respect to your presentation. Which software did you use to calculate the total inventory cost?
Well, that was analytical works, which is based on a simulation model. So we code the problem. We use some simulation, simulation models to do that. But at that time, actually, I was using a general purpose language. So it's not difficult because actually calculating total cost is quite straightforward. You just need to see when you are ordering, you charge your order cost, and when there is inventory, you calculate the holding cost. So summing up the total cost is not difficult. It's very straightforward.
Okay, actually, ma'am, this question is with respect to your presentation. Nita, ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Nita, ma'am.
I am using MATLAB and Mathematica, MATLAB and Maple.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So Jaggi sir is connected again with us. So I request Dr. Akanksha to proceed further.
I'm just putting my camera off because of might be some bandwidth problem at my end. So I'll place my video off. Subsequently, it might work. I already shared my PPT with Sagar, so he will be playing the PPT. Sorry for inconvenience from my end. My apologies.
No problem. Okay, sir. So our next speaker is Professor Chandra K. Jaggi. Professor Jaggi is currently working as professor in the Department of Operational Research, University of Delhi, India. His research interests lie in the field of supply chain and inventory management. He has enriched research experience with around 150 publications in Journal of High Repute. He is the recipient of Academic Excellence Award, Lifetime Achievement, International Best Researcher Award, Certificate of Excellence, Bharat Vikas Award, Best Teacher Award, IEOM Outstanding Service Award, USA, certificate for his exceptional contribution in the field of inventory management, certificate for his significant contributions in operation management, and many more national and international award of excellence. He is the fellow member of Operational Research Society of India and International Science Community Association. He is on the editorial board of many internationally reputed journals. He will be giving a talk on exploring different realistic aspects of inventory management. I now invite him to enlighten us with his talk. So please proceed, Professor Jaggi.
Thank you. Thank you, Akanksha. I So, with due apologies because of some problem at my end, I was not able to connect with you all. So, I just speak on the exploring different realistic aspects of the inventory management. Next, please. So, this is, I think, I just said in the beginning that introduction. That's how the inventory, what is inventories, and then we try to look into different ways of how the inventory can be managed under different scenarios. Next, please. Now, basically, the inventory was defined as by the Fred Hensman, an ideal resource of any kind, provided that such resource has some economic value. And there is a saying that if money goes around, world go around, the inventory makes the logistic go around. Next, please. That we know because these are the Wilson formula, we call it as the basic EOQ formula because it was also developed by Ford Harris in 1915 at the same time, but it was named after the Wilson. Next, please. Now here we try to look into different scenarios are that basically how we manage our inventory with inflation, with deterioration, with stock dependent demand, with trade credit and media induced demand and imperfect items, how we manage. Next, please. Now, usually what we see that it is assumed that lifetime of an item is infinite. That means we are not bothered. Whereas there are numerous items like food grains, highly volatile substances, radioactive films, blood, drugs, fashion goods, all are comes which having gradual loss of potential utility over a passage of time. So, it's not advisable to ignore the effect of deterioration from the modeling part. Next, please. The deterioration that I just explained, that is perishability, then the quantity deterioration, and then the utility. That perishability has got a fixed lifetime, and then quantity, that radioactive substances, volatile liquids, they all come under this. And utility, whenever the functionality or utility of the product goes down. And Ghare and Schroeder was a pioneer in introducing the concept of deterioration way back in 1963. Next, please. Here it shows that how if 10% of decay is there at a constant rate, how decay is going to take place. Now we try to look into the impact of decay as well as the demand both simultaneously. Next, please. This is how the decay we are explaining, how the decay function can be introduced. That means an inventory level after time t plus delta t. If theta is my rate of deterioration or decay rate, then the inventory gets depleted by this much after time, small time interval dt. Next, please. Here, this is the impact of demand as well as decay simultaneously when we are looking into. If there is no decay, then it is going to be a straight line as per EOQ formula we can see. Next, please. Here we try to put the differential equation that Qt is the quantity inventory level at time t, and then how it gets depleted with the inventory as well as, I mean, with the deterioration as well as with the demand. And that the Q we get this. And Q2, this is the inventory level at time T, which we try to find out the T is between the. I'm just asking, am I audible clearly?
Yeah. Yes, sir. It is clear.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you are very clearly
Thank you.
audible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next, please. And here we write the cost function, which having the three basic factors: your ordering cost, your purchase cost, and your inventory carrying cost. Here, when we consider the purchase cost, then it automatically takes care of cost of deteriorated units. If you see, this is the demand part and this is the deterioration part. That is what we say that is taking care of both the things at one go. Next, please. And here we see that Q goes down as compared to, if we compare it with the classical EOQ. That means when we are handling with the deteriorating units, then it is better to order more frequently, and so as the T will be shorter than the usual T. That means which we get it from the classical EOQ. That means freshness or the utility of the items remains, and the loss due to deterioration gets to be minimized. Next, please. Now here we say that stock dependent demand. What is stock dependent demand? We all go to the malls and we experience that we were there to buy something else, but we end up buying something more, which was not on our list. That happened. And Levin has defined it at times the presence of inventory has a motivational effect on the people around it. It is a common belief that the large piles of stock displayed on the supermarket will lead to customers to buy more. Same Silver and Peterson defined sales at the retail level tend to be proportional to the amount of inventory displayed. That's what the initial work started with the initial stock level, and subsequently, researchers realized that because of the depletion in the stock, the effect on the demand goes down. So that is basically that happened subsequently. The researcher. Next, please. Here, initial research, this was dependent upon Q, and then subsequently it was Q was replaced with your inventory level IT. Next, please. Here, then subsequently it was taken as IT. That means as soon as my stock level depletes, the impact of demand of that product goes down. Next, please. Then we try to look into the media-induced demand. Media basically plays a very vital role in consumers' mind. It keeps the impression in consumers of customers' mind that it has been rightly pointed out by Kotler that there is a need for a joint marketing and production planning, but unfortunately this area has received a very little attention in the inventory models basically. In one of the paper by Kapoor, Jaggi and Bardhan, they try to explore this, how this media insertion media has impact on the demand behavior of the product while people in the market. Next, please. Here, this is the function which we see that D bar is the maximum attainable, and Dn is the gap between the saturation level and the initially level. The initially may be some demand, and how this media can play its role to capture the gap between the saturation and the current state. And that is the way that we try to find out that again, this is the ordering cost, that is the purchase cost, and inventory carrying, and this is the cost of media insertion cost, that means advertising cost of the product. Next, please. This is the curve. Basically, the graphically, if we represent, this is the behavior of the demand, and this saturation level, it reaches after some time, it reaches the saturation level, and that we try to find out how it gets impacted. This was the initial one, and this next, please. And here we try to find out different media. That was the formulation of the one media. Now, if we have a different media operation, and then how many insertion in IH media, then I goes 1, 2, and then how it impacts the buying behavior of the consumer and influences the demand of that product basically. Next, please. Now we look into the inflation. Now, inflation is basically a state of disequilibrium between demand and the supply, and hence it has a state of price instability and manifests itself in a continuous rising prices. Basically, a long-term inflation is also called a moderate inflation. That means it occurs when the prices are rising slowly. Short-term inflation occurs when the prices start rising in double-digit rate. In fact, since 1970 energy crisis, many countries experience high annual inflation rate. Next, please. And that is the way that we try to model how my cost is going to behave if alpha is the inflation rate, then CT was the cost at time t, then after time t plus delta t, how it behaves. And that we try to convert into your differential equation and we try to see how this is impacting. Next, please. Here we try to write down the cost at the initial beginning of the cycle. And if we look into over a number of periods, if the n periods are there, and then we try to see that impact goes on increasing in that way. Now here we see the T and T. If you look at these T, because T becomes larger. Now with the inflation, T becomes larger, so as your Q becomes larger, that is having an opposite behavior of deterioration and the inflation. And one can combine the two and try to find out the break even between the two situations, how the inventory modeling can be done or can be managed. Next, please. Now we try to look into trade credit. Now, trade credit basically can be considered as a promotional tool also. It is basically presently a key concern for any business enterprises because it has a significant impact on inventory as well as a financial policy of the firm. And trade credit plays a major role in inventory management for both supplier as well as for the buyer. Next, please. Now here we have, I said earlier also, the one level, two level, then credit link demand. We are trying to in credit link demand. We are trying to use the same function as we did it in the media induced demand. How this trade credit also influences your demand. Then it is a partial trade credit, and then we have a trade credit under your inspection basically. Next, please. You click it one more time. One more. Thank you. Now, here one level trade credit is done with the supplier and that is there are only two parties between the retailer and the consumer. That is basically only two parties are there, then that we call it as a one level. That means net D, that means permissible day. In this situation, what happens, you are given a certain time period, D days, and during that period, the supplier does not charge any interest, but beyond that, if you have failed to make the payment, then he is liable to charge you some interest on the unpaid. DD1, this is basically comes from the marketing or we get an early cash recovery model. Here we say D% discount is being offered if you are going to pay within D1 days, where D1 days is much less than your D. Otherwise, you make the full payment in D. Practically, we call it as a 210 net 30, which is very much common in our day-to-day life. If those are doing as small businesses, and that is basically very much. Now, what is net D? Now, term net D quote that the number of days within which the payment is due, but do not offer a discount for prompt payment. That means you are not being offered anything, but you have to pay in net D days. Next, please. Now, for this one level trade credit, if we look into, then we have suppose the M days are being offered by the supplier to the retailer. Then there could be two possible cases. M could be less than T or M could be greater than T. Now, under this, we try to find out this Q star and Q star. And the classical is like this. Now, here you see that buyer is likely to order more. This is the order quantity as obtained in the generally higher than the quantity given by the classical EOQ. Because he's never realized it, but he used it and tried to order and try to use this one level of trade credit. Next, please. Now, DD1 net D. Now, here we try to explore the situation. It is whether it is advantageous to take discount or it is advantageous to forego the discount. We try to explore and compare the two situations and try to arrive at the decision what is right for buyer, whether forego or take the discount. Next, please. Okay, that we have not mentioned here because there we see anyway. Now I'm going to two level rate. What is a two level of trade credit and why it got attracted the researchers' thought or the attention? Basically, when the buyer thought that why he is ordering more, since he has started getting the trade credit, he started ordering more and more. So that has benefited him. Similarly, then he thought, why can't I offer further discount to my subsequent downstream members? That means there is a supplier, there is a retailer, and there is a customer. So he started offering that, or you can look into your manufacturer, then the distributor, and then the retailer. There could be anything, you can only, that means the three stages are going to be there. Now here, excuse me. Here we try to look into the two level and the different scenario, revenue up to T, then revenue up to T plus N. In revenue up to T, that means that whenever the last customer comes, that is, he will be getting less credit period. Basically, you can look into your credit card. If my billing date is 30th, if I make purchases on 29th, it will be billed me next day. Whereas in revenue up to T plus N, we say even a person, consumer or a customer is coming, even on the last day of my cycle, he will be given the full trade credit. That we call it as revenue up to T plus N time period. That means the same number N days are being given to all the customers, even if he comes on the last day. Next, please. Now, most of the retailers do offer the credit credit to their customer in order to stimulate their demand. Such a situation where both the supplier as well as the retailer offers the credit period to their respective customer is known as two level. That we have just explained. The supplier, retailer, customer, supplier, retailer, and customer. That's one, and this is N minus. Usually, this is why I've already explained. There are three members are there in two level, and usually initially studies or the research was carried out by considering the M is the credit period offered by supplier to the retailer, whereas the retailer is offering less than what he is getting. That means N is assumed to be less than M in the initial research. Next, please. Then we try to look at impact of credit period on demand. That it is observed that a credit period offered by the retailer to its customer has a positive impact on the demand. Increases the customer's demand. That means credit period helps to build up a long-term relationship of the company with this customer, and it also increases the customer demand. To explore next, now we discussed three different models to explore how the impact of trade credit on demand under two-level trade credit or the inventory policy. Next, please. First, we try to impact the credit period on the demand. Then it is observed. Then increase the customer demand and to get the same end. Next, please. Good. Now here we see that the demand of an item does gets influenced by the length of the credit period offered to the customer. If the customer makes the purchases at time T, then he gets the maximum discount N, and the customer gets the credit period equal to N minus T if he makes the purchases between this. This is what I said. in the beginning. There's no credit period being offered if he makes the purchases at time t, which is greater than n. Now, the retailer sales are divided into two parts. One is the regular cash sales, which continues to be there, and one is the credit sales. And that is the way that we have defined. Here, the demand is initially it is a price dependent demand, and this is basically the credit period, which is that is credit demand, which gets, whereas this continues to be there throughout 0 to t basically. Next, please. Now, here we see in the figure, this is my regular cash demand which is going on, and whenever I am offering some credit period, and this demand gets enhanced. This is a credit demand. Basically, this upper triangle, and we just try to find out how our Q is going to be built up in this, and we calculated Q as this, and the inventory level at any time t during the cycle, which is being defined as this, and then we simplify and we get this. Next, please. Here we look into the same function we are trying to look into, but there we have this Rn as a constant. Here we are taking Rn as variable. That means it is depending upon this. That means this is a discrete logistic function. That means where beta is a shape parameter and R is a steady state, and Rn which can be estimated using your past data. This can be estimated from the past data, and then we try to look into how our demand is going to behave. Next, please. Here we try to find out this D. That is the demand that we try to solve this with the initial condition N0, D0 S initial demand, and then we try to find out difference equation and we get this value of D. Next, please. Here that was basically our function was increasing and then stagnating. Here when we are taking Rn, that is basically it is a slow impact, and then it picks up and then it stagnates. There we have a different values of beta, and then we try to find out what different value of beta, and this is going to be our cost function. I mean the graphical representation of our demand curve. Next, please. Now we try to look into a partial, where the partial trade credit comes and plays its role. Now, normally what we say, that means you have a constant relationship between your supplier and the retailer. They have, but at times the retailer introduces his new customer to the supplier. Then he says, okay, that's fine, but if you make some initial payment, maybe a 5%, 10%, then I will allow you to take that trade credit on the rest of the amount. There the comes and plays its role. And normally we see in practice also, when we are taking something loan, etc., you have to make some down payment and then you get the rest of the thing you can get on the credit. That's the concept came from the partial trade credit. Next, please. Here the retailer's annual total cost can be expressed as your annual purchase cost, your annual ordering cost, annual stock holding cost, annual interest payable, and annual interest earned. Now here in trade credit, what we say interest earned. Basically, during the period I have a credit period offered to me, I'm not paying, but I'm using that money to my business. That money which I'm using to my business, that basically we assume if I would have borrowed it or from taken as a loan, I would have paid some interest, that we converted into interest earned basically, and that we try to earn. Now here we are taking the two cases that n is m less than m or n is greater than m. Here the condition of n remains less than m has been, because subsequently it was taken off. Initially this was the only case. Now subsequently this condition was relaxed and could be greater than what he is getting from the supplier. Next, please. Next, just click it more. Now, just one back. Yes. Now, in the classical inventory model, the common unrealistic assumption is that the item produced are of good quality. That we take it for granted, that whatever the item is being produced, that is of good quality. that may or may not be, that in reality, there may be some defective item in the ordered lot. Inspection. Now, inspection of lot becomes indispensable in most of the organization. Practically, that is impractical if we do not do the inspection. The screening process. These items are usually picked up during the inspection. Screening process are sold at a single lot at the end of the screening problem. Madam, I am getting my voice problem.
Sir, it is quite clear.
Clear?
Go ahead. Yeah, clear.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Next, please. Now, this inspection will try the production stage, replenishment stage, initial or in process. So, the inspection takes place at various stages. Next, please. Initial inspection, basically, in case the whole lot goes through an inspection, and before arriving or entering into inventory system, all the items are being inspected, and they are segregating between the defective and the non-defective item. Only the non-defective item goes into the system. The rest are returned to the supplier bag. Now, in process, now that is the screening rate here we assume to be greater than the demand rate, because simultaneously when the units are coming, we are inspecting them and then we are meeting the demand also side by side. This inspection helps to meet the demand also parallel to your inspection. Here we assume this as a density function, that is basically Fi is esteemed to be a past, and that can be estimated from the past data, that which function gets fitted in properly from the past. Next, please. Next, please. That is in modeling. That was just one slide back, please. Inventory model with trade category imperfect. That's what I said, because now we are trying to mix the imperfect as well as the trade category together, how they are going to function. Next, please. Now here we are assuming the demand to be a known with certainty, that is deterministic. Stockouts are allowed, and the lead time we are assuming negligible, and these are certain assumptions that a screening rate precedes the simultaneously, and the screening rate lambda is greater than the demanded, that I said, and that is the basically defective item exists in the lot, and that FR is basically the PDF of that. Now it is assumed the defective item contains the scrap, that rate is theta, that means iteration there. The rate of good quality item during T2 is this. Next, please. The part of good quality item meets the demand D, and the rest are used to eliminate the back orders. That means what, because we have stockouts allowed, so we have to look into our back orders also simultaneously. That is next, please. Now we try to go into the figure. Here the figure is there. Basically what is happening whenever the lot comes, the inspection starts, and these are your back orders. And here the inspection, that it means you are inspecting and meeting your demand as well as you're meeting your back order. At this stage, you are over with your inspection as well as your back orders. The inspection continues. And here, whatever the defectives are that are being sold out as a scrap, and then the model continues with the non-defective item we are meeting, and then it keeps going and further getting accumulated the back orders, and then the supply comes again. Next, please. Now here the retailer's objective profit function is the sales revenue, your interest earned, minus your ordering cost, your purchase cost, screening cost, holding cost, and the interest paid. Now sales revenue is being obtained like this because that we are having a non-defective items, and then this is basically when we are selling the scrap or the non-defective item in one go after the when the screening period is over. Now there could be 4 cases with depending upon your M and values of T2, T3, and T1, and these are the different cases that we try to explore and try to find out what is the best possible situation is available for the retailer. Next, please. Under this situation, we try to have two basically parts, the interest earned. That is basically the interest is being earned this way, and then interest payable after the M, then you have to pay the interest. That is basically interest payable. Next, please. The total profit in this case is defined as this. Since the alpha is a random variable, and with the known probability PDF alpha, then we try to find out the expected total profit per unit. And that is basically the total expected profit for this case is being calculated. Next, please. Under this situation, now M is after T2 and between T3, and of course T1 is greater. In this situation, we try to find out the profit comes out to be this. The expected profit because of the alpha, which is having a random variable, and we get this as a total expected profit per unit. Next, please. This is the same situation when M moves after T3 and less than T1, and that is the situation where we get the expected profit, total profit per unit of time in the third case. Next, please. And that is here. You have only interest earned because you cannot pay anything because M is greater than your T1. And that is basically expected profit for this fourth case. Next one, please. And that is basically our all these situations. Under these situations, these are our expected profit basically. Next. Now, the objective function ours is to maximize because we are having a profit function, and just we try to differentiate between with respect to Q, partial derivative and B, and we try to get, and this above equation can be solved simultaneously using a numerical method, a Newton-Raphson method, or you can use anything wherever this solution can be obtained. That is not a. Next, please. And this is basically sufficient condition, that is to establish that whatever the results we have obtained, they are optimum or global. That is the conditions, sufficient conditions for that. Next, please. Because it is very difficult, because if you see all the objective functions are quite complex, and mathematically establishing the condition for sufficiency was difficult. So we try to cover it with graphical representation. Graphically, we try to find out whether this are concave function, and that is what we get. Next, please. These are all the for different cases. We try to establish it through graphically. Next, please. And that we have done it with the different sets, number of sets, and try to find out we get a proper shape under different possible combination of this. Next, please. Here we try to solve a simple numerical example for that. D is this, your ordering cost, and your holding cost, and your per year. This is demand coming out to be D. Lambda, there is a screening rate, and these are the different cost parameters, and if alpha is taken as this, and expected value comes out to be 0.2, and interest earned we have taken as 0.08, and interest payable, which is normally usually is higher than your interest earned. Next, please. And that optimum order quantity comes out to be this. This is a back order quantity comes out to be this, and this is cycle length comes out to be optimum cycle length, and screening time comes out, and total profit comes out to be this much. By comparing our results with the log and order, the results suggest that by availing the trade credit, results can enhance the profit. Basically, we compared it with Sorgo and Ordinal papers 2007, and we found that our results, with the help of the trade credit, we are able to increase our total profit. Next, please. Now here we say the inventory modeling for imperfect item with the rework process. Now in the previous modeling, we are not incorporating the rework. That means when we are segregating the things, and here we say the manufacturer plays a dual role. He may be a supplier or he may be a manufacturer. He's playing a dual role here. Next, please. Now, these are the basically the production inventory model has developed for the imperfect item where the fraction defectors are there to avoid shortages during inspection period. We're assuming the higher, much higher than the demand rate. These are normal assumptions which we have taken. Now, here what we say when we are trying to segregate, then it's possible that's human error, we can say. That means type 1 error and type 2 error. That means total scrap that items includes fraction of actual defectives which are wrongly selected as segregated as a defective. That means result of a type 1 error, the sales return result, and type 2 error, and this is successfully reworked. Basically, we try to find out type 1 error and type 2 error, and we try to find out this because it is possible that is because of human error. It's possible the defective may be termed as a non-defective or non-defective termed as a defective, segregated as. Next, please. These are same that semi-finished goods are used to manufacture a product. Production rate is finite. The production inspection is normal. Demand rate is uniform and deterministic. All defective returns and are accumulated till the completion of the production and the inspection process. Only a fraction of the defectives are sent for the rework, and the remaining imperfect are discarded at a cheaper rate before the start of the rework process. That is there. Next, please. Now here we say the production rate, that is then rework rate. There are different rates, and the demand rate, and the production of imperfect, a uniform variable, a random variable, and then having a PDF. Then proportion of the non-reworkable item. Theta 1 is proportion of failed reworked item. Then proportion of type 1 imperfect error, that means a random variable with PDF, and proportion of type 2 imperfect error, a random variable with PDF. Then production rate of imperfect, that is find out here in units. Production rate of the scrap unit during the rework process in number. Next, please. These are the time units, that is T1 is the shortages building time, then shortages fulfill time, inventory up time, rework, production downtime, production up time, cycle length, the expected value of the operator, that these are the values, the salvage selling value, salvage values, disposable cost, and the selling price. Next, please. That is salvage value is naturally less than S, that is there, that is we are using that cost of committing type 1 error and cost of committing type 2 error. And this is a rework cost. Next, please. Here, decision value, order lot size, each cycle, and the maximum back order allowed. And these are your PDF for a defective item, PDF type 1 error, PDF for type 2 error, PDF of non-reworkable, PDF of failed rework, manufacturer's total cost, and the manufacturer total cost per unit time, then manufacturer's total revenue. Next, please. That is a manufacturer total profit. That's a notation. Then optimum, the values, the T star, your back order, then optimum order count per cycle, and your total profit basically. Next. Here we see the production basically. Here we are accommodating the back orders. From here the production starts, and there we are trying to produce, and we are trying to simultaneously look at the rework item and the defectives, and this keeps going the rework, and then after this only the demand is being met basically. Next, please. See here, if you see, this is basically the portion that we are getting discarded after the inspection is over. That part goes and gets disposed of, and let's try to look into it. That is a pictorial print of the inventory. Next, please. That is basically again the inventory system, how it works, and the non-defective and defective. That is basically that figure has been broken down into different parts of the figures. Next one. Here, I think, can you see this figure? Basically, the flow chart is being given here, that how this flow chart works. That everything has been displayed here, that how this is going to work it out, basically. I can't.
Now it is visible, sir. Now it is visible.
Because I can't read anything
Yeah.
because it is getting too small. So I'm just trying to opening it up so somewhere
Yeah.
in a different system so that I can read it out and then see here the inspection that Y. This Y units were ordered. This is a basically inspection now. Now it is an imperfect proportion. This is a perfect proportion. Now it goes here XY. This is basically a 1 minus X of Y. Now here the xy, which was imperfect, that is again trying to find out 1 minus q2 and q2. That is type 2 error. And this is on the second hand, you can see that imperfect was termed as perfect. And here the perfect was termed as imperfect. And that's basically going to come back to you. Because naturally, if you're selling an imperfect unit as a perfect one, that is going to come back again. That is a sales return basically. And the person who is getting a defective and non-defective as a defective, he will have a problem. That is the way this goes by. And that here we try to find out total imperfect items which are being collected here from both the angles. This coming here. And on this side, if you see, that is basically is coming out to the sales, and there's going to be sales. And then we try to find out this total imperfect item. That is, these are non-reworkable items and these are reworkable items. And that again segregated in different parts, and that goes back here. That means perfect item is coming here, and the otherwise this. This is the basically the whole functioning of this our model is being depicted in a flow chart, because how these events are going to take place. Next, please. Now, in the current production, that X% of defective are produced, and then randomly that basically now this is basically that what we are trying to find out from the model and the flow chart. The same thing has come up here. Now from A1 to A2, the section both perfect and wrongly classified goods item fulfill the demand. The rest are used to eliminate the back order from the, because we are having a stock out, so we have to manage the stock out. In order to avoid the shortages, period days, the screening rate is assumed that we have already assumed. That is next, please. Now from A2, positive inventory building times begins up to time A3, and then it goes with the rate this way. Now A3 is a fraction of the sales return and stored defective item, actual or false, whatever that is, are discarded as a scrap at the discounted price of V. And from time T3 to T4, the remaining fraction of both the actual and the wrongly classified defective item sales return enter into rework system at a rate P1, and that increases the inventory level to this way, because you are adding something more after rework. After the end of the rework, inventory gradually decreases due to demand and reaches to zero. Due to imperfect process, rework process, there is a reoccurrence of scrap and the inventory cycle which are sold at a price V. Next, please. Here we see that what we had there, the total items sold with the selling price. This is a cycle length and a basic formula which is trying to find out the value of T1, T2, and T3. Next, please. T4, these are the variables. This is H1, this is H that we are trying to find out. Next, please. This is a production cost, then it is an inspection cost, then it is a rework cost. Next one. This is a disposable cost. Basically, whenever we see after the rework also, or when we are getting it, the item cannot be reworked or cannot do anything, that goes in the scrap. Now, inventory holding cost. Now, here this inventory cost accounting is non-defective item, defective item, rework, and item returned from the market. All are being stored. That is basically that we are trying to calculate the inventory holding cost for this. And this is the stock outs which we occur between the T1 and T2 period. That is basically that we do. Next, please. This comes out to be a total cost when you are adding all these costs which I have given you the formula that what are the costs which you are adding to it. All these costs the sum up to this one. Next, please. These are the basically total sales revenue, then revenue from the scrap, the revenue. This is the total revenue which we can calculate. That was the cost. Next one, please. This is the manufacturer's total profit. That means your total profit, revenue minus your total, all the costs which you subtract, and that we get this function. Next one, please. This is per unit time when we are trying to find out. Next, please. That is expected profit. Because of that we are having E alpha, then there becomes the expected profit of the manufacturers. Next one, please. These are the necessary and sufficient conditions that we can see, but it won't be possible for us to prove it mathematically. Next one. And we did prove it graphically in order to show. Now here we have taken the data which helps us to demonstrate this model FX FQ1 that of different PDFs, which in practically can be estimated from your past behavior of the system, basically. That we can always estimate from the past these, and then we can work it out on the actual. Next, please. Here the Y comes out to be, Y star comes out to be this, the back order is there, the expected profit is there, and T comes out to be a 25 days. Next, please. And we try to perform the sensitivity on different parameters. And we use deterministic value of these, and we are exploring them. So we try to find out, let us see that total profit or total expected profit on this equation, that how it behaves into the system when we are doing a sensitivity on this model. Next, please. Now, impact of X on the production policy and the, now here we see visible from this that it is beneficial for manufacturer to reduce the proportion of defective, that is X, as there have inverse relation between the total profit. Naturally, it is a common phenomenon because if your imperfect defective goes up, naturally it will have an impact on your profit. Profit will definitely go down. Next, please. The impact of V, that is the optimum policy, and that means it is evident if we increase the scrap, the value of the scrap or the total accumulated defective, there is a decrease in proportions 1 minus meter, and the rework proportion, that is a rework proportion, this result in less recovery of perfect item due to irreparable disorder in the terms of the hence decreases the value of total profit. That means there is also an increase in the order quantity since more units will be required to satisfy the demand of the through the perfect items. Next, please. V1, this is basically the impact of high value of scrap V1 of the rework item on the total profit of the system. Consequently, there is a decrease in the proportion of perfectly repaired items 1 minus meter I, causing sales of less number of perfect item and hence decreases the value of total profit. So satisfy the demand of the perfect item, more units will be required to produce, hence increase in the value of Y is observed. Next one, please. Then the Q1, basically what this Q1, the evidence that by committing more misclassification errors of type 1 that manufacturers are unable to sell all the perfect items to satisfy the demand and is discarding some of them as a scrap by mistake. This restricts the manufacturer to achieve maximum sales through the proportion of falsely classified defective as a non-defective. Naturally, it is basically if I get as a non-defective as a defective, that it's going to impact me and recovered by the rework process, but overall effect decreases the value of total profit. Next, please. Now it is a Q2, the error 2. Now there is an increase in the number of unit sales returned since the defectives have been wrongly classified as non-defective, due to which the manufacturer suffers penalty cost and a goodwill loss. That is basically damaging for any business. That is a goodwill loss. Because once the goodwill goes, I think it has a overall impact on your business, and overall the demand not only for that product, maybe a demand of other products may also go down, which is difficult to recover due to frustration and the quality dissatisfaction by the customer and may not be willing to purchase. That's what I said. It is not only having on that product, it may have impact on the other products of that company as well. Next, please. Now, applicability of this model, the current model finds its wide application in manufacturing industries like textile, electronics, furniture, footwear, plastics. In developed countries like US, China, Russia, where the manufacturer are trying to achieve the supreme standards of the quality to dominate the world market, they cannot afford to overlook the quality control issues. To face the challenge, companies adopt different strategies to ensure the best quality customer service. Companies do invest in substantial amount of money, time, and efforts in the inspection and the rework. This quality check managed post-manufacturing comes at a relatively higher cost but pays off tremendously by the customer satisfaction, gradually converting the boost and into boosted reputation and revenue, which is ultimately the goal. Next, please. At the end, that is, the proposed model can reflect the real manufacturing and business behavior in the production firm. The finite production model is established to investigate the optimum lot sizing and the optimum backorder level by maximizing the expected total profit per unit for the imperfect production and imperfect rework environment. In order to reduce the production inventory cost significantly, it is essential to integrate the rigorous inspection process to sort out the defective from the whole lot. The production of imperfect items, these are basically all common conclusions, which I'm reading it out. Thank you very much. Next, please. I think that's the end of it. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That was really an amazing talk on realistic ideas of inventory management. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. Now time for question. I have one question from audience. If we use preservation strategies, does this affect inspection process in any model?
Can you repeat the question, please?
If we use preservation strategies, does this affect inspection process in any model?
Which policy? I'm not able to get you that.
Preservation.
Akaksha, sir's question is about whether we apply preservation technology, will it improve objective function?
No. See, inspection and preservation basically goes in a different direction. Basically, preservation is you can reduce the deterioration level. Basically, preservation technology comes and plays its role there because we are working separately on the preservation technology because that helps in a different way. Because that is basically you can protect the non-defective items into better preservation. That is, deterioration level will go down. That you can manage well. Because if the item is already coming as a defective, then preservation is not going to help it there. Basically.
Yeah, is there any another question with Professor Jagdish? Yeah, Professor. No. Okay. Thank you, sir. With
you.
this, we come to yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the end of today's proceeding. I am sure all of us enjoyed today's presentation and learned many new things which we may be able to use in our future research. I thank all the speakers for spending their time in making insightful presentation. And I also thank all the audience for their active participation. We will continue the seminar tomorrow and meet again tomorrow for the next session at the 10 a.m. Indian Standard Time. And also the link will be of feedback form will be open tomorrow after the seminar. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sagar, can you stop the broadcast